Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we will use real-world data to create a multilinear regression model to predict the rent of houses. The input attributes will include the number of rooms, the number of bathrooms, the parking spaces, and more. We will first look at where we can get this data from and then how we can clean it up to feed it to the linear model. So let's get started. So in the previous video, we saw the concept of linear regression, which was y equals mx plus c. So we had one gradient and we had one intercept. So the idea here is that now we have multiple linear regression. So therefore we will have multiple gradients, or you can say multiple slopes, but we will have only one intercept. So if you're not familiar with this concept, you can go back and check out the theory part where I explained all of this in detail. So before starting any machine learning problem, we need to find the data. So there are multiple resources where you can get this data from. You can generate your own data as well. But two places that I highly recommend to check out are the UCI machine learning repository, and the other one is Kaggle. So let's have a look at UCI. So if we go here and we look at these different data sets, and these are the ones that are these are here the newest ones, and here we have the most popular data sets since 2007. And if we click on view all data sets, then we can see here that we have lots of categories where we can select our relative data. Now, the thing is that if you have seen the previous videos, we discussed about the categories of problems. So here they have defined those. So if we are talking about supervised, we have problem types of classification and regression. And if you are talking about unsupervised, then we have clustering and association problems. So here you can see that they have sorted these out. So for example, in this case, we want multiple linear regression. So it is a regression. So we will click on regression. So here now we can see that we have all the data sets that are related to regression. So you can see here, these are all the regression types. So here we can see that we have two main things, which are basically your instances and your attributes. So instances are basically, if we are talking about houses, then how much data we have or how many houses we have. So for example, if we have data of 100 houses, so the instances will be 100. And the attributes are basically the features. So for example, the number of rooms is one feature, then the number of bathrooms is one feature, the parking spaces is one feature. So how many features do we have? These are basically your attributes. In other words, you can call attributes your columns and your instances your rows. So here you can see that this is quite a large data set. Here you have small ones, 125, and here you have 10,000 with 22 attributes. So you can find different data sets with different instances and different attributes. So the one we are going to use today is through Kaggle. And if I go here, and by the way, the same thing goes with Kaggle. You have these tags that you can use. So for example, I can click on classification and I will find all the data sets that are available for classification. So I can click in on any one of these and I can use them. And some of them are basically part of a competition that have prizes as well. Anyways, so the one that we are using today is basically for rent. So we will write here house rent, and this is the Brazilian house to rent dataset that we will be using. So let me click on that, and there we have the datasets. Here you can see that we have this is the actual files that we can download: houses to rent version 2. And here you can see that we have these different attributes. So you have the city, you have area, you have number of rooms, number of bathrooms, and you can scroll and you can see which floor number we have, animals, if they are allowed or not, furniture. So if we go to column, and then we can see how much do we have for each one of these. So we will not be using all of them, we will be using some of them to actually create our model. So before you actually download or use any dataset, just make sure you understand the license. So here is the declaration of the license. So this one is basically Creative Commons 0, and it is pretty much public domain. So here we can download. If I click on that, it will start the download, and because this is a small file, it will download relatively quickly. So I can click on that, and here we have, let me close that, and here we have the files. So we have houses to rent and houses to rent version 2. So I will be using houses to rent rather than houses to rent version 2. So I will open up PyCharm, and here we have a new project. Actually, this is the one that we did with single linear regression as well. So we have already installed the relevant libraries, but I will show you how you can do that. Then here we have the multi-linear regression folder, and then inside that we have house rent as our py file. So this is the main file. So all you have to do is you have to just drag and drop into the folder and just click OK. And here we have the dataset now. So you can see houses to rent, and so these are basically CSV files, which means comma separated values. So each value is separated with a comma. So you can see it here. And at the top, we have the headings that we can use, and we can sort out our columns. So if I say city, it will take all of this, the second column, which is 10100. So all of this basically tells whether it's a city or not. Area is basically the number, the size. Rooms, you have 3, you have 2, you have 5, and then you have, for example, animal, it's accepted or not. So here you have not accepted, here you have accepted. And then we have the furniture, whether it's furnished or not furnished. And then we have the rent amount. This is the value that we will be trying to predict. So you can see here, I'm not sure which one of these this is, probably this one. And then we have some other values as well. Now the thing is that they have made it a little bit difficult to use this, because they have added this R and dollar in front, and they have commas, and we will have to filter all of this out. But it's not that difficult. It's not something big, so we will be able to solve that problem. So the first thing is, again, you will go to files, you will go to settings, and here in the interpreter you are going to install, you can install matplotlib. I don't think we will be using this. Then you will have to install scikit-learn, and then you have to install, it's basically this one, sklearn, and then you have to install, what else? I think that is pretty much it. The rest are just the dependencies, and it will download or install by itself. Okay, yeah, one more thing we have to install, let's go back, is pandas. Is it here? I don't think so. So let's install pandas. So pandas is the library that will allow us to get the data from our CSV file, and it has some built-in functions that will help us to actually filter out our data so that we can easily send our data to our machine learning model. So it's a very useful library, so we are going to use that. So the thing is that whenever you are working with the data, you can use many different techniques to actually filter it out, make it cleaner. But the thing is that I recommend that you try to use limited amount of libraries, because there will be libraries that will allow you to perform actions very easily, but again, you don't want to overdo it, so especially when you're starting. So I will try my best to limit the number of libraries that we will be using so that we can easily understand, and once we do understand the basics, we can go into the next part and then try new libraries and some advanced stuff. So let's start with importing pandas. we are going to import it as PD so that we don't have to write it again and again as pandas. And the first thing we will do is we will import our data. So data is equals to pd.read, and we will write CSV, and then we will simply give the name of the file, which is houses to rent, and we will define the separation as comma. So this will separate the values for us. Okay, and then we are going to define which of these values or columns that we want to use. But before we do that, there is a method by the name head. So you can use this method to actually view the first 5 rows of your data. So this is a very useful method. So you can write here print, and this will print out your data head. So if we run that, let's right click and run, and there we have it. So you can see that it prints out the first 5 rows, and you can see that we have 14 columns over here. So you have city, then we have area, property, tax, fire, insurance, total, and so on. So this one is saying unnamed, and it's repeating again. We can put ID here, I think. Let's write ID here, and let's save that. And if we run that again, and there we have it. So now it's not saying unnamed. So let's say this is the ID and city and this everything else. Okay, so once we have that, we are going to select the columns that we want to use. So we will say that data is equals to data, and then we are going to write all of the column names that we want to use. Now there are 2 methods of doing this. Now you can specify the number of the column. So you can say, for example, this is 0, this is 1, so I want 1, 2, 3, 4, something like that. Or the better way to do this is to specify the name at the heading. So that is a better way to do this because it will be easier to see what is happening. So we will be using that. So here, for example, the first one we will write is city, and then we will write rooms, and then we are going to write bathrooms. Is it rooms or room? It is room, not rooms. And again, it has to be exactly the same. So if I go back here, it says bathroom, so it has to be bathroom, not rooms. And then we have parking spaces. So here I have randomly selected some columns. You can choose your own as well. So here is fire insurance, RANCE, and it's getting big, so let's go down, and then we will write here, let's say furniture. So what I've done is I have mixed up the type of data we have. You will see later on why, because we want to see all the kinds of data that we can have, so we know how to use them before, how we can filter it before we send it to the model. So we will write furniture, and the last one is the one that we will be using as our output, which is in this case the amount of the rent. So we will write here rent amount. So this is it, and again we can just take this and we can cut. Let's remove the break, and we can write here and we can print. So now you can see that right away it has become, again, it's 5 rows, but now we have 7 columns. So it's city, rooms, bathroom, fire insurance, furniture, and up till rent amount. So that is good. Now this whole area, we can call this as loading the data. So it's better to write comments. So load data. So that is done here. And let me just bring this down so it's easier to see. So the next step is to actually process our data. So we are going to write here process data. So what kind of processing do we need? So if we look at our data here, so you can see that the city is basically already, they have they have converted it into 1 and 0, so we don't have to do anything over there. So city means 1 means it's in city, 0 means it's not in city. And but for example furniture, it says it's furnished and not furnished. So we need to convert this into 0 and 1, because the machine learning model does not understand strings, it understands numbers. So we have to convert this into 0 and 1. In the same way, if we had different cities and we had the names of these cities, so we will have to convert these names to 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, 0 means New York, 1 means London, and then 2 means something else. So all of these will be categorized into numbers rather than strings. So this is what we have to do. And the second thing we have to do is we have to remove this RS, and we have to remove any of these commas as well. So this is all of the processing of the data that we have to do. So there is a method within our pandas library that is associated with the data. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the map function to actually solve this problem. So it's very simple, it's just one line of code. So we will write here data. So first of all, what should we do? Let's do the rent first. So let's write here rent amount. So this is what we are talking about. And then we want to change our data at rent amount, and then we are going to use that method .map. This means that using a function, we are going to change all of the values within our data rent amount. So here we are going to write lambda. Now lambda is basically a single line function, so that you can write, and it does not have a name. So what we are doing is basically we are saying that this is our variable I. We are saying that we want to take in the first two. Let me just show you here. So what we are saying is that we want to take out these first two elements. So this will be 0 and this will be 1. So we want to remove this element. So this is basically a string. So we can use the slicing function of the strings to actually remove this. So we are going to say that we want to remove the first two elements. So let's say this value that we are talking about, this 7,000 value, is what we are getting. So this I will be the 7,000 value. So we will say that we want to remove the first two values. So we want to start from 2, and in the end we are not giving any value, so it will go till the end. So this is what it means. And then this will replace this will remove these two things, okay? But we still have this. So to remove this, we are going to use the replace method. So we will write here replace, and to replace we are going to say that we want to replace a comma with an empty space. So that is how simple this is. So here we are talking about a single value. So I is basically the value of, let's say, 7,000. But we are using the map function to actually apply this to the whole column, right? So this is why we are using this map function. So okay, let me just put it back, and then we will go back here, and I think I might be missing a bracket. No, okay, I don't think I'm missing. Okay, so that is good, but the last thing we have to do is we have to convert it from a string to an integer, because we are talking about numbers. So we will convert it into a string, sorry, a number. So let's print out the head now, and let's run it. So there you go. So now it's converted back. So here you have 8,000. Here it was RS 8,000. So if I don't do, let me just copy that and let me paste it. Oh, let me paste this here. And if I don't do the replace part, you can see, oh boy, there is an error. Oh yeah, you cannot convert it if you did not actually change it. So let's do that. Okay, so here you can see if we don't do the replace or the integer, then this is what we get. So first we are basically removing the first two values, and then we are replacing the comma. So this is what all of this is doing. So this is for part 1, and then we also have to do for the fire insurance. So we have to do the same thing for the fire insurance. So we can simply copy and paste this. If we have a lot of these, we can put it in a loop, but in this case we don't have a lot, we only have 2, so I'm not going to put it in a loop. So let's do this, and let's do it here. Is it visible? Yes, it's visible. So let's run that, and there you go. So now the values, earlier we had RS 1 to 1, and now we have 1 to 1. So that is good. And the next thing we have to do, we have to change the furniture from furnished not furnished to 0 and 1. So to do that, we have a function in the scikit-learn. So we are going to import, let's write from sklearn imports, we are going to import pre-processing. So here we are going to just define the object le is equals to pre-processing dot label encoder. So this is our class, and what we will have to do is basically we will write here again that data, we are talking about, this time we are talking about the furniture. Did I write it wrong? No, it's fine. So furniture, and then we will say that le dot fit, and we're going to fit transform, and inside we are going to write this again, data furniture. And if we run this now, and there you go. So furnished is 0 and not furnished is 1. So you can see here that now we have zeros and ones instead of furnished and not furnished. So far we have loaded our data, and we have done some pre-processing. Now the next step would be to check if we have any data that is not a number. So it's also called NaN, not a number, or anything, if we have any missing data somewhere. So because right now it's not really visible, we might have some missing data. And in real world examples, it's very common that some of the data is missing, so we have to replace it before we can actually send it to the machine learning model. And then we are going to split the data for training and testing, and finally we will create our model and we will check the final testing score. So all of this we will be doing in our next video, so stay tuned for that. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I will see you in the next one.